years is to find moments and places where we can connect and facilitate better accountability and transparency into the air quality debate and make sure that there is progress. If what we have is the National Clean Air Program, then how do we make sure that there is better accountability and action? One of the programs or activities that we run along with Urban Sciences team and the very leadership of Ronak is creating dashboards to plot data interestingly and innovatively to actually create evidence on where the issues on air pollution management in the country are. One of the things that we focused on in the last year or so has been the state of Maharashtra. I think none of us need to be aware about the physical and the monetary and the health nature of the challenge in the state. By some estimates, Maharashtra is one of the states where the number of deaths due to air quality poor levels is quite high, and after some states like Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan by some other accounts. So clearly the scale of the problem is quite huge. It's also a state which has a lot of non-attainment cities, 18 or 19, and to that extent, even the fact that it became industrialized, there are a number of industries out there. There are several forums in which there is discussion on how industrial pollution is huge. A couple of days back, as Delhi's air quality came into very severe levels, astonishingly for us Delhiites, it also was a time where Mumbai's air quality was in discussion, and some of you were explaining how it was more humidity and stagnant air in south of Bombay, which led to that situation. But the point is that over the last 3 years, as much as we've talked about air pollution, we've come to a point where even a city like Mumbai, which you did not expect to have very poor levels of air quality, has come to that level. I don't think any of us are working in this campaign to have more cities plummet into that situation. And therefore, we feel in our limited view of things, whatever we can do to make an emphasis on what needs to be done in terms of action, control measures, making sure that they are high impact and making sure that they are timely. That is a little background of what we thought of as Ronak, Gunjan, Urban Sciences and the Climate Trends team and everybody else involved started to think of what could be a physical representation or a dashboard where you can plot all the action plans of all the cities in Maharashtra and therefore use it as a way to track where progress is happening. That's exactly what we've done. In today's session, what we are trying to do is in the next hour or so, we will have the team present and take you through the dashboard, what it means, how to track data, where to look for it, and how is it that you're able to use it in your day-to-day work, either as a journalist or as a campaigner or as an expert. We also interact a lot with media, and I think there it's quite clear that while the nature of the conversation has evolved, there is a lot of discussion on air quality. Journalists have also become natural campaigners against air pollution, which is a good thing. But to the extent that 30 years before this time, we were talking about taking measures to tackle vehicular air pollution and making sure that the traffic lights are synchronized and things are happening at that basic level. I think today we are doing the same thing. And the fact that there is so much discussion, yet there is very little progress, just looks like we are living on a balance sheet, which is definitely no profit, but some loss. And that's not a good space to be in. I think I only wanted to set a little bit of context on where we want to go. I know that we have time with the panelists who will talk a little bit about what their view is on the action plan itself, the dashboard itself, and also what they want to speak about the work that they're doing in their organizations and how they feel the challenges are and what is being done in terms of facilitating action. For the moment, I will pause and I will hand it over to Ronak and to Gunjan to take you all through what is going to be released today, which is Maharashtra Action Plan Dashboard. Let me just preface it by saying that it's been a lot of dogged determination to get it done. This might feel like a very simplistic exercise. You see it for yourself and make it out, and let's talk about it. But the fact that the action plans are also just listed as a set of measures and activities, and to be able to take them out from where they are listed in PDF, measure them as high impact, medium impact, low impact measures, and actually list them into what kind of action plans will lead to what kind of outputs has been some activity, but I will let Ronak and Gunjan explain a bit of that to you.
Thank you, Aarti. Vinamta, can I request you to share your screen, please? Thank you. Thank you and good morning, everyone. As Aarti has already prefaced that this session has been planned to kind of discuss this dashboard, and also just overall what the state of Maharashtra has managed to achieve and what they have been doing and where the struggles and challenges have been in terms of trying to get the cities on board in their air pollution management efforts. This dashboard, if you could change, please, Namta. This dashboard, of course, it's a first ever digitization of the city action plans for any of the states. There were 17 non-attainment cities and Vasai-Virar, which we could convert into what Aarti already said, from PDFs to a digital platform. The plan for Jalgaon was unfortunately not legible enough to be able to do justice to it. So we had to drop it from this entire process. But overall, there are 18 cities where we have literally kind of decoded, breaking down all the action points or control options that the cities kind of list, measures in terms of tackling the various sources of pollution, whether it's vehicular, industrial, brick kilns, or resuspension dust, and a whole range of others. Of course, it's an effort to simplify action plans to make them much more accessible and transparent in terms of understanding for a lay person, for most of the people. It's not easy and always possible to kind of go into each of these documents and be able to sort of do a deep dive into comparisons and how cities are performing, and just even get a holistic sense of where the sort of thinking is. And I think this dashboard, I think just even for us as a team between Urban Sciences and us as Climate Trends, I think it gave us the first ever sort of insight in terms of the focus where Maharashtra's action is really kind of directing towards. And it's like, when we listed out, it was very clear that vehicular action is where a majority of the focus by a large leap kind of gets the attention. Most of the cities, I think all 17 cities, have listed action plans which are aimed towards vehicular actions. And when we count each of the action plans, and which have been categorized, whether it's for EVs or for road broadening, or constructing more highways, or traffic management, all of those, I think they combine to create a bulk of these actions. For example, if we look at a city like Mumbai, I think out of 58 total action plans, almost 1/3 are focused around vehicular emissions. So clearly, I mean, there is a very clear sort of a focus from the state in terms of addressing the transport emission sector and trying to do something about this. The second, I think, was definitely the industrial emissions. And as of course, Maharashtra is one of the most industrialized states, and definitely with one of the highest state GDPs, it's clear that the emission sources from the state, from the industry, is also high, and it's a challenge which the state has been dealing with in terms of trying to address. About 130 plus action plans from about 17 cities come under the industrial emissions, and cities like Chandrapur and Solapur and Ulhasnagar, and all of them have listed out a range of actions that can be addressed. Some of the things that we definitely noticed, if Vinamta, could you change the screen, please, the slide? For instance, I mean, when you delve deeper into these action plans, and a lot of them, they have mentioned things like high, medium, and low impact, but there were no clear definitions in terms of how to define high, medium, and low. And each city has their own sort of interpretation in a way. For example, in vehicular, we saw that blacktopping of roads is listed as high impact by Pune, while it has been listed as low impact by Solapur. Similarly, when we looked at the timeline trajectories which have been given by cities in their individual action plans, from short, medium, and long term, it's clear that, again, there is no fixed duration which has been set for them to identify what short and what medium and long term means. So it has been kind of left a bit unclear and left to interpretation by us as external people, and possibly also for cities. For example, the use of LPG in hotels and dhabas is listed as a long-term control option in Vasai-Virar, but in Thane and Navi Mumbai, it's listed as short-term and mid-term in Amravati. So, I mean, these kind of small discrepancies, when we digitized and we kind of listed out all of these action plans, you could clearly see, these sort of changes and these sort of gaps and similarities or homogeneity in terms of understanding between cities. This graph, as you see on the screen right now, this is sort of an overview of just the number of action points which each city has listed. Clearly, Navi Mumbai has some of the highest action plans. This, of course, this is a quantitative measurement, so to say, with this graph. It does not possibly gives a very qualitative assessment in terms of what these action plans are and how much of those are really kind of aimed towards addressing a city's air pollution sources and management. But it at least gives you some sort of an understanding in terms of focus areas and sectoral targets, etc. Next slide, please. Thank you. Again, this is what I was mentioning, that clearly vehicular emissions is something which really overshoots in comparison to all other sources and their mitigation plans by more than half, in fact. And dust is another priority. Industry, as you see, is the second priority. So definitely, these are some of the areas where the state's focus lies and the city's sort of understanding in terms of tackling air pollution lies. Next slide, please. Again, I mean, yeah, this is with digitizing this and making it into an interactive dashboard, in which Ranak will, of course, take us through and kind of also give his own insights into this. We're hoping that this kind of makes the city action plans much more accessible at a very city level, of course, from the whole state level, to just understand how plans have been panned out, where various actions and sources and strategies are taking place, and where, how to sort of compare and even get an understanding. Because I mean, there is, and I think Dr. Modkare and Professor Chakrabarti are here, and they will throw more light on the monitoring evaluation process. But so far, from what we understand, I mean, this kind of allows, at least at a very layperson level, for citizen activists or journalists or stakeholders to just even be able to analyze and draw certain inferences on how the NCAP is performing. I mean, we are coming to 3 years of the NCAP target, and with a 5-year deadline. So definitely it's time for a certain level of evaluation in terms of these plans. Next slide, please. This is just a screenshot of what the action plan dashboard, the Maharashtra action plan dashboard looks like. I think I can hand over to Ranak to kind of screen share and give us a bit of a demo and just take us through how this action plan works. Thank you. Ranak.
Thanks, Gunjan, and a very good morning to everyone, and thank you for taking the time. Also grateful to Dr. Modkare and Professor Chakrabarti and the rest of the panel for joining today. Let me just share my screen. So, yeah, we've been part of this team, working with Climate Trends on understanding the clean air action plans that have been presented at the state level. I'll just start my brief introduction on this by when just quoting from what my PhD advisor, several years ago when I joined the PhD program at IIT Bombay, he had actually mentioned to me on the very first day that spend 90% of your time planning your work and 10% of your time actually doing the work. And in that context, these action plans, hold both aspects to it. They are plans and they are action driven. But we feel that it's very important to plan and understand the plans that have been presented. And so this whole exercise actually started from the fact that when the city action plans were released, and many of us who used to work in this field wanted to kind of understand the direction in which things were going. And the blueprint, the city action plans gave a blueprint, and this was a very credible effort. Given where the country was in terms of its clean air initiatives, having these plans has been a very positive step in terms of understanding where the focus areas are, because even for the regulators this is a very challenging proposition, especially when working at the state level. Some of these topics at the neighborhood level are completely different, but when you scale the actions at the state level, a very different set of approach needs to be understood. So we wanted to do a deep dive into the all the non-attainment cities of Maharashtra, and the action plans gave a window to doing that. This whole exercise, has been put together largely, a team led by Gunjan and Vinamrata at Climate Trends, Nakul, who's been part of our team at Respirer or Urban Sciences. Coming to the actual action plan dashboard, the way it has been presented, there is all the actions that can be seen either at the city level or at a pollution source level. And the reason we've done this is that, there are some groups, the whole focus of this is to increase the civic engagement and citizen engagement in what really is happening with the clean air action in our state and in our cities. So there are some groups who are very city focused and who specialize in city level activities. And there are some civic groups who may be very domain focused and maybe experts in their specific domains, which may span across cities. So our thought process was that, to group all the actions either at the city level, so that allowing civic groups to, quickly view these things at the city level, or domain experts to understand what is happening across the state at the pollution level. We being, so to speak, a domain-focused team, tend to try to look at things from the pollution. I'm going to give a quick walkthrough from the pollution sources level. Similar analysis can be done at the city level. In terms of pollution sources, the key, as Gunjan mentioned, that this analysis helped us understand what is really the focus of the government in terms of where is the most of the control actions and control options focused on. And as you can see over here, a quick analysis tells us that vehicular emission really stands out as one of the key focus areas for the government in terms of mitigating air pollution. This is followed by the actions at the industry level, followed by the dust resuspension and the biomass and waste burning and construction and demolition. This is not to say that, there can always be a case where a smaller action can have a larger impact. So it doesn't mean that the DG sets, which has only 21 control options, may cumulatively have lesser impact than something which has more control options. But this is some kind of a measure, because we need to balance between quantitative and qualitative analysis. And the quantitative analysis tells us that really the focus of the regulators and government is on vehicular emissions, industry, and dust resuspension. That seems to be the outliers. So this kind of a quick analysis, the requested finances broadly, it's a very large, some of the finances may not exclusively be part of the clean air action and maybe falling under transport or the waste management or, other departments of the governance branches, but broadly we've kind of put them here. The important metric here really is to look at how many control options and actions are there. And this will give you a quick view. This figure over here is a quick understanding of, which are the terms which are most frequently repeating in the action plans for specific. So supposing if I just pick vehicular emissions and I do a filter, I'll get to know what are the key terms, which in terms translate to the actions. So transport, of course, stands out under vehicular emissions. And then there is some fuel related work, there is some battery related work going on. So this kind of gives us a window into what really is going on. What I would like to highlight here is, and which is one of the key features of this dashboard, is being able to search the actions and the control options. And a parallel I can draw is, the world which existed pre-Google and post-Google. Today, we are all very used to, just quickly going and searching for things on Google or even in our inboxes in Gmail. The fact remains that there was a world of internet that existed pre the search, and where you needed to remember what was happening, you needed to categorize, classify things. Today, the world cannot be imagined without a search and a feature like with a solution like Google. This is something to the effect where, if you are a domain expert and let's say you just want to understand what's happening at the construction level across cities, and if you are a construction expert and you know how to improve or bring in mitigation strategies, you will quickly just look at all the construction related actions that have been planned out in the state, and you will immediately know who are the authorities who are focused on it, the responsible agencies, and what really is the actions that they are trying to take. So I can, give an example of we work in sensors. And if I just search for sensors, this will give me a quick window into what really is the actions that are planned in terms of using sensors. And it was quite revealing to me that, there is a focus I saw that of using, doing vehicular PUC checks using sensors. So that kind of tells us that, yes, we are aware of that technology, but it is also that the government is now looking at using some of these remote sensor-based PUC systems. So for folks who are domain information, this kind of a dashboard will give you a quick idea into what really can you as a civic group look at in terms of engaging. Of course, if you are just a city focused group and you want to look at tracking or bring some accountability to some of the work that's being done, then you just look at the filter, you just filter out at the city level and look at all the actions across sources that are happening. So broadly, this will kind of give you that, in Akola, what's really going on for different actions that are happening. So we feel that this kind of a interactive way of looking at this information will open up this entire activity of clean air actions to a much wider community. There are research groups who work on advanced natural language technologies who will be able to parse out and bring out more meaningful connects between different actions and things. So we feel that this is a platform really to build engagement and to build kind of a civic connect to a much larger audience, which we are also certain that the regulators who have frequently very positively looked at connecting with citizen groups would be able to do it in a more meaningful and focused way, where a lot of this information can be parsable, searchable, and viewable by audiences. So that's really kind of the effort over here. A lot of analysis can come out, and we don't want to kind of break down everything from our end. The whole objective here is using social media platforms, Twitter, emails, several different mediums. We want different groups who specialize in let's say brick kilns or alternative fuels or domestic chula burning specialization. They would actually come and engage with the appropriate authorities in figuring out how to really implement these actions. So that's broadly what this dashboard has. I mean, you can actually dig into some of these specific actions, open up and see really what is the impact that is being, that Gunjan explained. Some actions have high impact, some have medium impact, some have requested finance upfront, some might be using it from other sources. So really speaking, this one is giving you a 4.5 crore finance, which has been requested for a plantation drive. So this kind of gives you a very quick view into how to analyze these city action plans. But that's all from the dashboard side. The actual authorities, Dr. Modgare is here and Professor Chakrabarti, who's part of the NCAP, will help us understand how can a larger civic audience engage in these city action plans, because ultimately this affects all of us, on a daily basis. This is not a one-time exercise. So this really is a small step in that direction. That's all, Gunjan, from my end.
Thanks, Ronak. And just for everybody's information, this dashboard is also live now. So we can go through it. We can track what the action plans are. We can play around it a little bit and see how it feels. But before we go ahead, I know that Dr. Motkare is online, and not only is he the champion of the star rating work, he's also quite a star himself when it comes to managing Maharashtra's air quality. Good afternoon, sir. How do you think this is useful? I mean, the kind of things that Ronak showed, that you can figure out whether a particular action plan is high impact, medium, or low. And do you think this kind of work is going to help in coordinating air quality management? I think all of us have suffered with solutions which are knee-jerk and results that are not coming in actual air quality gains. What is your view of the use of metrics like these, dashboards like these, to create better transparency and accountability for air quality management in a state like yours?
Thank you, Aarti. Thank you, Aarti, for arranging such webinar. Now I told you during your initial speech, you mentioned about the deaths. First point. Second, you mentioned about more non-attainment cities in Maharashtra. And third is you mentioned about Mumbai Air Quality. I want to contradict on your statements. How you ascertain about the deaths due to the air pollution? Is there any figures do you have in Maharashtra? No. One thing. Second, you mentioned about more non-attainment city, 19 in Maharashtra, because other states don't have the monitoring equipment which measures these pollutants. This data was taken from 2010 to 2015, where the non-attainment cities were mentioned. Maharashtra was pioneer way back from 91, where the monitoring, I have installed a monitoring equipment where I can get 24/7 air quality. Other states don't have. As on date, Maharashtra is having highest number of monitoring stations. So why more non-attainment city? I will scratch this, because there are more monitoring stations. That's why there is a more data generated. Other states don't have that much. Third one, Mumbai air quality. You said bad, poor. Why? Have you checked the air quality data of our CPCB? Where it is bad? You give me the answer on that. You have mentioned about the supper station. Supper stations are installed at the junctions of the traffic junctions, which is not as per the CPCB protocol or MOA protocol, where you will always get severe to severe air quality at the junctions. This is third point. I'm coming to your dashboard now. The dashboard, this dashboard, Prana dashboard, since inception I was involved with the government of India. You see the Prana dashboard, how it is working. Each and every pointing of the 132 cities of India, it is there mentioned. So you are now duplicating the work, like in creating another dashboard. You tell your guys, you go through each and every point of the Prana dashboard, how we have mentioned minute to micro level action plan in there. I'm not criticizing this thing, but before you launching such type of thing, you should concern the authorities also. Why you have not taken Jadgaon? Jadgaon action plan is there. It is well, you can take it. But regarding to the Raunak criteria, Raunak issue, I will come to you. Mumbai is having 19 non-attainment cities, and all the action plan are placed and it is under implementation phase. Recently, Government of India, Honorable Minister has also visited on 23rd and 24th November. And Environment Minister from Goa, Environment Minister from Gujarat, and our Environment Minister, all dignitaries. We have supervised the action plan, and 4 states were participated in this regional workshop. And we have deliberated on this. And CPCB has come out with the very fundamental initiative and assessment of the city action plan. And if there is a more improvement in more than 15% than to the national ambient air quality than to the previous year, they come as a higher. There is a matrix they involve. You kindly go through all these. I'm telling all these guys who are maybe not aware of this thing, because they have to go and study all these things. There is a complete number of marking which are given for the all 132 cities of India, where total number of scores are there, and on this basis there is a financial allocation to this. As far as Maharashtra is concerned, so action plan is under implementation, and we are converting this agglomeration action point into EV action plan. So my 80% of the fund, the vehicular pollution costing nearly contributes around 30 to 40%. So our EV policy is launched in 23rd of July 2021. It is one of the India's finest EV policy. Everybody has appreciated, and we are trying to convert this all the 15 finance FC cities into the EV policy and 20% on the rest. So whatever the fund we are getting from the government of India, we're trying to implement this EV policy, and with this implementation by 2025, I hope the Maharashtra will become a #1 state in India where the implementation of EV will be one of the foremost, and there will be tremendous reduction in the vehicular emission, and we'll be able to achieve this target. Regarding the various achievements, within a couple of days, like by the month end, you can see my 1770 CAQMS 24/7 all over Maharashtra will be on dashboard. So this will be the highest number of CAQMS, analyzer based. Each CAQMS costs around 1.5 crore. Will be on a online 24/7, and my 124 manual stations will be also online. So I'm going for that. Almost because we are not getting a support from the IORs regarding the studies, but source apportionment study is already going on. Low-cost sensor work is already in place, but still we are in a very initial phase whether to go ahead with the low-cost sensors or not. That still the study is at my end is going on. SODAR, one of the instrument which we have installed. Also, we are going for a carbon footprint mobile app, and health impact studies, C&D waste, and traffic simulation studies with IIT Bombay with transportation division. So many things are in line, and you must have seen you must be having in the Glasgow also with Honorable Minister, our Minister, and we got the award for Race to Zero and COP26, and will be the only state which is going for a 43 carbon neutral city. I think if you can go with my AQI standards and good days and bad days, we have improved a lot in this recent year for good days and good air qualities, and improvement in air quality from 2017 to 2021 is all there on a public domain. I think with support from all NGOs, urban organizations, and other governmental organizations, I think MPC Maharashtra will achieve the national ambient air quality standards, and this performance of this all 19 cities of Maharashtra. And I hope the dashboard created by Climate Action Group will be also helpful in tracking the progress of this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Modkare. If you're around for another 5 minutes,
Yeah.
may I take the time to open the floor and respond?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Because
I'm going for a
yes.
Japanese delegation at 12:20. Yeah, please.
Sure. Couple of things I will say, and maybe I will allow others to comment as well. Maybe some of the facts first. The way Prana looks at the action plans is that they have the printed action plans put over there. What we've done in the dashboard is actually take out individual action plans, individual actions and control measures, and digitize them on the dashboard, as you saw Ronak pull out if there's vehicular, what kind of action is there, and if it's a particular city, what is being done on industry suspension. So that's a digital way where you can search across cities, across control measures, across high, medium, and low impact on what kind of action plan measures are actually there. That's not possible in Prana. With our limited engagement also with NCAP, with some of the IORs, we've actually been at the dashboard and the NCAP tracker for about 3 years now. We are a very small entity. I don't want to, punch above my weight, so to say, but I think it will not be incorrect to say that the Prana dashboard to some extent has been inspired by the work we've done with some of the IORs, the way Ronak and his team have been involved. And to that extent, I think even if the kind of work that civil society has done in tracking and increasing accountability has inspired the government departments and the MOEF to create the Prana dashboard in the first place, I count it as success. And I would not have spoken about it, but I think your provocation led me to say it. But it is good that we have it out there. On maybe I'll let others respond on other things as well. I'm sure there is. I agree. The data on health is always contentious. We cannot say very clearly that deaths have been caused due to air quality. I don't want to be very crude, but in the end, somebody will just die due to a cardiovascular disease, and the cause of death will never be air quality. Not in Maharashtra, not in anywhere else. But I think the fact does remain that if it is an industrialized state, then there is several examples of hyperlocal pollution. If it's a state with with cities with extremely dense population, then there will be again hyperlocal pollution. Let us not say that all is hunky-dory. I do understand that, but I will get to you the data which also shows the burden of disease and how in which states of India the burden is high. Actually, Maharashtra, in my understanding, and I think that's the work that Dr. Chandra Venkatraman of IIT Bombay has done, is also one of the states with very high indoor air quality impacts. That's not just deaths due to indoor air pollution, but just respiratory disorders due to indoor air pollution. But that's also the reality of India throughout. And like I said, Maharashtra is not the only one. There are other states like Rajasthan, others like Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh, because it sits in the Indo-Gangetic belt, and I think everybody would agree. And Rajasthan, as I understand, quite peculiar because of the stone quarrying issue, and that has not been dealt with to some extent. But I'll also let other experts say other useful things, especially in the linkage of air quality and health. That has always remained nebulous. It will always be sublime. We will never be able to cause direct attribution, but let us not stop acting in the same spirit as you said. I fully agree with you as well that only if you monitor, you come up as a state which has bad air pollution. Only if you monitored, you came up as the state with high COVID numbers. Only, and there are several examples to do that. And I think let us not take away the spirit of action with saying that we are monitoring and this is why air quality is indeed poor. You're absolutely right. Maybe I was wrong in saying that the air quality in South Bombay was poor and very poor. That's some of the media stories that I read, and actually quotes attributed to ex-Niri and Safar. You are right, but I guess that's our job along with you to fix that narrative. If you think that there is monitoring that can show that air quality wasn't bad, it was mostly whether it was a temperature drop or a high humidity or a stagnant wind condition, then these are the kind of things that we better get right in the public discourse. But I think being an honest broker on this is absolutely essential, and that's our job. I'll only end by saying that it's been, as you might be aware, Dr. Modkar, it's been at least the absolute pleasure of Climate Trends team to work with Aditya Thackeray's office and to really encourage Maharashtra government to join Race to Zero. Aditya Thackeray, your principal secretary, Ashish Kumar Singh, myself have been in Glasgow, where Maharashtra government got the stage to talk about the action plans that you're doing, EVs and the policies even around air quality mitigation. And I think there is a large amount of work that needs to be done over there. India has announced net zero targets. In my limited view, Maharashtra is one of the states which can actually break down the net zero targets, both in terms of energy transition, like moving away from coal and phasing out, which has been the discussion at the end of COP. Also, progressive EV policy, because you do have a very good EV policy, but looking at benefits that will come from both energy transition and transport sector transition to air quality management and gains in basically a better air quality. I know I digressed quite a bit, but I wanted to respond to everything which is very fundamental and important that you said. And I just wanted to get the spirit of the conversation right. If you have 2-3 minutes, I'll let you just say if you have anything to say, and I'll let all our esteemed panelists, including Professor Chakravarti, Ronak, Tanushri, and Amit to chime in, and Mr. Mangesh Dige if he's around, for just one word before you leave.
No, I was just it's a discussion. Don't take it as a
Yes.
personal.
No. It's a good discussion. It's a good discussion. But
Don't take it as a personal. It's a discussion. You know me since last many years, 2013.
Yes, which is why I took the liberty of.
I got the liberty to talk to you.
Absolutely fine.
I met Raunak, I met Tanushri, everyone I know.
No, sir. It's a good conversation, and
yeah,
I know that you have to leave. That's why I opened the floor. All of us can say what we have to.
Ma'am. It's a conversation.
Correct.
It's a conversation. I am not taking
Professor Abhishek, I don't want to put you on the mat, but in my desire for being provocative this afternoon, Mr. Modkar talked about IORs. What is your view of how IORs are actually helping PCBs, urban local bodies on air quality management? Where is that conversation?
To be frank, Aarti, IOR's role in NCAP is still not very clear to me, because it seems that because no funding has been allotted to us, so we have to rely on PCBs that we submit proposal and they will respond back to us. So this has to be streamlined. But one thing I want to mention that what Dr. Modkar did, and he's also going to install a lot of CAQ's industrial region, which is very important. And that data we'll get quickly, and we hope to collaborate and analyze the data. I think he's very open to that, and we met several times on that. So that's not an issue. But the issue is that IOR's role, MPCBs ask our help in source apportionment. We are doing that. But apart from that, proactively, we can't start anything on our own because the funding is lacking. So we have to rely on them. We have to submit a proposal then, because they are also quite busy with all other work. So I want to mention that if you look at the US EPA structure, they have their own research division, air quality research division. Although they have the largest funding for the air quality research, but still they have their own air quality division dedicated for research. You look at the California Air Research Board, they are the pioneer. They're published like in high top rating journal every year, several papers, their own scientists. So that the coordination is still have to be developed. But this is a very right step. The NCAP has given us the opportunity, because for the first time I'm seeing municipal commissioner who are meeting with them. They are the people who are going to actually implement things. So let's not jump into conclusion. This will take some time. This is a very good initiative. It will take some time to take shape, but this is a move towards right direction. And I think we all are on the same page that we have to improve our air quality. There is no other way about it.
Right. Sir, Dr. Modkar, there is a question from a journalist. I don't know if that says it right, but it says, when are the emission apportionment studies expected to be out in public domain? Is that the source apportionment studies that you're doing?
So IIT Mumbai, we have given the source apportionment study to IIT Mumbai and IIT NIRI Nagpur. in 2 phases, 10 plus 7 plus 1. 10 cities in first phase, second phase, 7 cities, and third one is Thana. So short-term action plan is already in place. Now we are expecting somewhere in January 8 from all these 10 cities first, all source of study. That's what the 15 days back I had a discussion with IIT and NIRI. So, and we have given the deadline to them, final deadline to kindly submit, so that we don't want to lose the marks in NCAP funding also. So expected by January end. Okay.
Right. Thank you. If Mr. Mangesh Tige, can you hear us? Do you have a slightly stable connection at the moment?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. So it's okay. Are you able to hear me? Am I audible now? No.
Yes, you are audible now. When you started, it was a big drag. Let us try and see if you're audible all through. Maybe you can speak slowly, sir, so that we don't lose much of what you say. I wanted to ask you, a lot has been discussed in terms of all of these action plans. You come from PMC. Also, a lot of air quality issues are now in discussion in the city. What do you think the city is doing in terms of implementing the action plan, and where are you with it?
We started this journey about air pollution around a year ago or a year and a half ago, and with MPCB's directives, we've been following various programs under NCAP. And I would like to put up a few points. How does the city look at it? And as a municipal corporation, first thing is that when we look at a city from air pollution perspective, there is no particular institutional mechanism which exists to deal with the air quality of the city. It is purely because of the main reason that there are so many stakeholders, a variety of stakeholders are involved when we talk about air pollution. And therefore, when the city government deals with this issue, unlike other issues like, let's say, solid waste management or water, we have a dedicated department. But when we look into air pollution, we don't have a dedicated department or a team or a group which can look into it. So therefore, while when we fill up information and prepare the action plan for the city, it becomes very difficult for the municipal corporation to take into consideration all the departments who are involved. Some of them are within corporation, but many of them are outside the municipal corporation jurisdiction as well, which are other government departments. So therefore, it is not only the city, but it is also an issue which is more of a cross boundary. So therefore, urban agglomeration participation is important, and therefore not only just one municipal corporation, but the other areas also need to take into consideration. So here, when we propose actions, whatever we think are beneficial to improve air quality, these actions, if we have to translate them into what kind of air pollution reduction that has happened, it becomes very difficult for a city to really attribute a certain action to a particular reduction. And therefore, I feel that modeling is very, very important, so that the city can understand that whether X or whether Y action is going to be the most beneficial in terms of air pollution. So plus with the existence of now Prana portal and whole lot of documentation which is required at different stage of implementation under the 15th finance program and for the national clean air program. So when the city has to submit all the documentation, utilizing certificate and things like that, plus information on Prana, here we feel that there is a need to have a unit, something like a project implementation unit, which can collect all the data from different departments and put it in a meaningful way as what is required by Prana. So therefore, the whole lot of actions which are at local level, within the municipal corporation, there are many of the actions which are there at the state level, and some of them are definitely at the central level, which are more of a policy level. So we have to integrate all of them and put it under the city action plan. That becomes quite a challenging task. Then the next part is when we look at the city with respect to sorry, yes sir.
Just a minute. Aarti, I have to leave for Japanese seminar because they are very particular 12:20. Sorry, huh? Gunjan, please, huh?
Thanks.
Sorry.
Thanks, Dr. Modkare.
And this
Thanks
is
very
all.
much.
It is all discussion. Don't take it personal.
You don't have to say it. I'm sorry if I went overboard in answering. But
okay. Everyone, I support everyone.
Much.
Raunak is there. Raunak is there. Everyone I support, but don't take it personal. This is my views because
not at all. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So shall I continue?
Yes, please, sir. Please continue.
Yes, sir, please. Yes.
We were talking about identifying the air pollution sources within the city. So there could be point sources, line sources, area sources, so which are different for different city contexts. Like, for example, I would like to say that the crematoriums which are there in the city, they are a continuous source of pollution, and they have to be addressed to a great extent. And I think we need to really focus on them, because there we can have electric crematorium or air pollution control unit fixed. And with respect to transport and other aspects, definitely we are putting up that in the action plan. But city also needs to look into the burning of waste issue, so that the PM10 2.5 concentration can be looked upon. With respect to Pune city, we also have we are preparing the EV readiness plan, and we have got the electric buses. I don't want to get into the components of the action plan, but there are some of the initiatives that Pune city has taken to a great extent towards improving EV mobility for public transport, wherein 150 buses are already in operation and 500 more buses. Next, I would like to point out is with respect to emission inventory and source apportionment study. As Dr. Modkare mentioned, that would be really important, and the latest emission inventory and source apportionment will help the city to really point out where our focus should be. Plus, these city studies need to be done on a very regular basis for us to really understand whether there's been a shift in the kind of pollution that the city is experiencing. In terms of monitoring, I feel yes, monitoring is there being done specifically in Pune city, but also understanding what is the background concentration that is coming in the city. So putting up monitoring stations in the background, maybe 10 kilometers away from the city, will help us to understand out of the total pollution what is there, which is generated by the city, and what is coming from the background. So that when we set up the target for Pune for a city, let's say there is a target of 30 to 40% reduction. Now this target is it for the whole pollution, to total pollution, or is it for what the city is generating? So setting up a target is very, very important. And for that, we need to be very specific about the kind of numbers, the data that is generated from the monitors. So definitely, I feel that air pollution is a subject that every city needs to have an institutional setup, so that we understand this issue in totality. And there is definitely a need to set up an air pollution department within the cities, so that it takes into account all the aspects and all the stakeholders. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mr. Dige, and thankfully the entire connection was seamless, so we could hear you totally clearly. There were many important things that you said, and the point that you made about looking at the fact that there is regional coordination. I think coming from city administration, that to me is quite important. Definitely for a city like Delhi, there is so much conversation all the time on how much sources of pollution are within the city, how much is external sources, and we can never be able to come to a solution till the time we don't establish either an airshed approach or a district-wise approach or some kind of a regional coordination mechanism. And I think there is a lot in there. Maybe Tanushree, with the analysis that CW have done, what is your view of how the action plans are looking for the state, and where is the state really heading towards in terms of air quality management measures? I'll allow you the floor and to share your perspective.
Thank you so much, Aarti, and I'm really happy to be a part of this panel. Before I respond to your question on the city action plans, I just want to make one quick remark. I can vouch for the amount of labor that goes into looking at all the plans and digitizing them, because when we looked at the 102 plans which were publicly available at that point in time, I know it's basically very labor intensive, and sometimes the print is bad, the font is odd, so congratulations on this commendable work. I also want to say that when we did the city action plan assessment, we thought that study will act as a tool for helping civil society engage more on the action plans. And we've been having conversations with cities across the country, primarily in Uttar Pradesh. But having a dashboard which is easily searchable is really going to be very helpful in making this information accessible. Just one suggestion, I'm sure you guys are considering it, see if there is possibility of translating some of the stuff into Marathi or Hindi, because I know a significant part of the Chandrapur belt also speaks Hindi. So I think that this will increase accessibility to the plans. So I'll stop right there on appreciating the great work that you guys have done. And I'll move over to the question on the action plans. So a couple of comments there. Now, things have changed significantly since the plans were put out, and you guys would have actually observed that. So if you see a lot of action points in the plans, the timelines for them actually date back to 2017. So ideally, the actions should have started in 2017 and 2019, the activities should have been delivered on ground. But clearly that has not happened. The other bit that has changed is that initially these cities were only funded by the NCAP funding, which was paltry, which was very limited funding. But since 2020, now there is major funding in the picture. The third bit which has happened, and I think that this is really interesting in case of Maharashtra, and I was actually looking at the video for the event that Mr. Modkare was referring to, which was organized a couple of weeks back, I think. And what I realized is that even though there are about 7 urban agglomerations in Maharashtra, they actually cover 30 cities. So it's not just the 19 cities which have been designated as non-attainment, but it's actually 25 cities plus 5 cantonments which are within Maharashtra. So in terms of the way the program was structured, in 2018, when the first concept note was drafted, subsequently the plans were made, things have changed. The approach towards the NCAP and city action plans has changed. And I don't know if you guys picked up on the point, particularly for the urban agglomerations, 80% of the total funding that will be received under the 15th Finance Commission grants, that will now go to promoting electric vehicles. So clearly it's quite evident that regardless of what the clean air plans say, because like you said, and it's absolutely right, that a significant chunk of actions are actually for alleviating emissions from the transport sector. But there are a range of actions, from widening roads to, ensuring that PUC compliances happen, to public awareness drives, to remote sensing based PUC checks, to promoting battery operated vehicles, to promoting public transport. So transport as such is a huge bucket, but looks like in the coming years, from what I'm understanding, a push is going to be towards the electrification of vehicles. So when we look at transport, I think that is going to be the major action. The second bit about source apportionment studies and emission inventory studies. I think for some reason, and this might sound slightly irreverential, but I feel that pollution control boards think of source apportionment and emission inventory studies as almost like elixirs to the problem of air pollution. But my limited understanding of the subject tells me that while it's absolutely crucial to plan activities on ground, it might not be the real deal breaker, because the situation is that, if different groups are doing emission inventory studies, there is a lot of variation. And we've seen that in our analysis, like the recent study we did on, looking at India's emissions, we saw that just from one sector, there is significant variation from 27 to 50%. And this is where I think the IORs need to play a very critical role, because pollution control boards receive the study, but I think the importance is to critically evaluate it. And I really think that this is where, the National Knowledge Network or the IORs need to play a critical role in helping them decipher the studies. And finally, I would like to close talking about the action plans in general. We do talk a lot about, regional approach to air pollution. We do talk a lot about energy transition. We do talk a lot about power plants meeting emission standards, all of which are absolutely crucial, and air pollution control technology in industries. And all of this is alluded to in the plans of the 19 plans which are available on CPCB right now. But what we need to understand is fundamentally, as our cities are growing, we have sadak, yatayat, indhan. These are the three things which are the deal breakers. We need to fix our unpaved roads. Otherwise, we will continue with road dust, which is a major challenge. We need to fix our issues to energy access. I mean, we have LPG for cooking, but we potentially don't use it for heating water. So we still need to figure out an energy access challenge. And yatayat, it does not have to be an electric mobility transition, but it has to be a mobility transition, which I think is very critical if we want to reduce air pollution in our cities. So that's about it. That's what I wanted to talk about. One last point, I think this is important, is the timelines. I see that the City Action Plan dashboard has actually talked about the timelines. I think it would be really useful to have a conversation. I think both the folks from PMC and PCB have left us, but what would be really good to understand is the sanctity of these timelines. Because while you guys have put it, and people might want to use it to ask questions as to why something has not been delivered as per the timeline, but I think it's also important to understand that when these plans were made, I don't think the deadlines were put in as something which is sanctimonious or something. So I think about the timelines, it would have been nice to deliberate a little further. But with that, I will end my interventions, and I'll look forward to listening to what other panelists have to say.
Thanks very much, Tanushree. And the few important things you said, I will only use them to ask the same question to Professor Chakravarti as well as Amit, and then we can open up if there are any questions from the participants. And I mostly wanted to then check with both of you on, you're looking at all this very closely. You've also seen all of the discussion on the action plans, the agreements between which PCB or which agency we are talking about, and that will decide if the air quality of the city is good or bad, and not just the monitoring itself. What do you feel, Amit, in your view, are the gaps that you're seeing in terms of implementation on ground? And what can be the probable solutions in your priority list?
So thanks a lot, Aarti. So let me start with a big thank you to the Climate Trends team for this excellent work. I mean, we are also working in this area, and one of my colleagues kind of developed a similar kind of Google-based tool for 2 cities, and I was like, wow, this is great. You have done it for all cities. So really appreciate the kind of work you have done. And it's an absolute privilege to be a part of this discussion, primarily because of 2 reasons. One is basically the gravity of the issue we are going to kind of discuss. That's number one. And the number 2 is precisely the kind of panelists we have got today. I mean, Modkare sir, Professor Chakravarti, Ronak from my alma mater, IIT Bombay, Tanushree, and Mangesh Digeji for sure. So I'm representing a 30-year-old not-for-profit organization called Institute for Sustainable Communities. We have been working in this area of sustainable manufacturing and urban sustainability. So while sustainable manufacturing is more towards helping industries to reduce their energy consumption, urban sustainability is more to address issues like air pollution by working with ULPs and other things. And currently we are implementing a program supported by USAID. It's called Clean Air Accelerator. While broadly the focus is all non-attainment cities in Maharashtra. For implementation of some of the solutions, what we have done is we have shortlisted this airshed region. Airshed region we have shortlisted primarily because of the reasons mentioned by Mangesh ji, and we have been kind of talking about this approach. So this airshed region comprising of Navi Mumbai, Thane, Ulhasnagar, and Badlapur municipal corporations. In terms of solutions, because I feel like my other panelists have already covered what are the gaps in the city action plans and what are the challenges implementing agencies are facing. I would like to focus more on the solution side of it. And to start with, there is always some scope for improvement. There is always some room for improvement. But I feel city action plans, as of today, are the most powerful instrument, providing a strong overarching framework to reduce air pollution in a timely manner. And if we have to talk about the solutions, broadly, we can have these solutions under three buckets. So first one is basically strengthening the ecosystem. The second one is related to mitigation. And the third one is related to control. Strengthening the ecosystem is primarily, I'll focus on two things. And I think there have been discussion around this. Certainly, we need to kind of enhance the skill set of the people who are basically responsible for implementing these programs, ULBs. And when I say enhancing, basically enhancing skills related to air pollution, monitoring, reporting, these kind of skills, so that we can have effective implementation of NCAP program. And the second thing is we also need to have some IT-based interventions. We have been kind of discussing this concept of dynamic monitoring framework, and my team also had a discussion with Ronak on this. Somewhere the idea is what Mangesh was mentioning, like there is a great amount of effort which is required for the coordination between different stakeholders. And if we can have some sort of tool which will kind of ease the work for these ULBs. So that could be with respect to the strengthening the ecosystem bit, because ULBs are the main agency responsible for the implementation of the program. The second and the most important is the mitigation. What if the question is, what if like we get away with all sources of air pollution? Let's take an example of industry. I mean, we are saying like industry people, they are using coal, furnace oil, or any other fuel to meet their energy demand. Is there a way we can replace these with a clean technology? The question is, yes, we can do that, but we'll have to address three major challenges. The first one is related to technical. So we can go to industry and we can say whatever we want. We can go on and on. The only one question they are going to ask is, have you demonstrated this technology somewhere? Which means they have a suspicion about the performance of the technology. And we need to kind of address this by doing some pilot demonstrations. So for example, if we are planning to replace a conventional fired boiler or furnace, can we go for a solar concentrated waste system to meet the same heat kind of demand? So do pilot demonstration to establish the performance of the technology. That's one. Once we have done that, then the second question is cost of the technology is going to be very high, higher cost of the technology. And that's where I believe like some of the approaches like demand aggregation can come into picture. So we have been working with EESL on the something called National Motor Replacement Program using the same concept. And what we have seen is a reduction of something around 25 to 30% in the capex cost of the technology, because economy of scale is coming to picture, and that's how we can take care of the higher cost related to barrier. And once we have done that, also the biggest thing is industry people, they are going to say we don't have money to implement, which means we will have to make arrangement for financing. So we need to look for either risk of financing based model or maybe an extended version of risk of financing model, where we are making arrangement for financing at a lower interest rate. We are also making payment security mechanisms, because that has been traditionally the biggest challenge when we talk about implementation of these technology. And that's how we can basically address this barrier, or we can have large scale adoption of clean technologies in industrial segment. That's what we are trying. And then the third thing is control, basically to reduce the kind of air pollution from different sources and also reduce the exposure of it. So again, in this bucket, the capacity building and awareness thing will come into picture. So for example, in industry, if it is not possible to completely replace the technology, what we can certainly do is we can optimize the performance of the boiler. And that's where the capacity building will come into picture. And when I say capacity building, basically we will have to have targeted capacity building programs. That's what we have been doing. And what I mean by that is precisely, if my target audience is a boiler operator, I'm not going to talk about the fundamentals of boiler or fundamentals of combustion and all. I'm going to basically talk about these four things. This is what you need to do. As a result of this, you will see reduction in fuel consumption. And this is going to be a viable proposition for industry owner also, because end of the day, they are going to save their cost. So that's the kind of solutions, that's the kind of approach we are having. Whatever we do, overall, we will have to follow this 3S approach. That's what we are kind of adopting. It's basically solution, sustainability, and scalability. So you identify and demonstrate the solution, Then the second thing is sustainability. You ensure the sustainability of that solution beyond the project period, which means capacity building and strengthening a ecosystem will come into picture. I mean, we can have a system in place with any of the ULBs. If they are not equipped enough to kind of carry it forward beyond the project period, then there is no point in doing this. And then the third thing is scalability. And that's where I feel knowledge dissemination is going to play a key role. I mean, we are demonstrating solutions in one region, but we'll have to take it to other in order to achieve this large scale adoption. So that's the overall approach we need to have. And I know this is like very easy to kind of discuss. Say the real implementation is difficult, but I feel as long as we are on the right track, we will achieve the target at some point of time. It's just a question of time. So that's my thought process. I'll be happy to have discussions or inputs from others on my thought process. And thanks again for this opportunity.
Thanks very much, Amit. We are also moving close to 1 p.m. and we have to close the session. But before we go, I just wanted to check with you, Professor Abhishek, and a lot has been said in terms of what government agencies need to do, what needs to happen in pilots, and scalability, looking at mitigation measures, control action, everything in the middle. But how do we put meaningful impact in terms of air quality gains? Delhi has suffered for the longest time, for example, where we've taken measures as well. State government, center have taken some actions, but the conversations are there and they have evolved, but the air quality gains are very hard to come by. So just as your full view of the picture, what do you think are some of the priority areas to look into, especially when it comes to Maharashtra? And not just in terms of like which sectors, but also which governance issues to tackle and how. I mean, from what I understood on the session so far, for example, even the state is looking at whatever money or the budget is coming to cumulatively up the game on electric vehicles or public transport. And that's very good, but that might not be sufficient for the scale of the problem, and money will not come as a bottomless pit. So what is your view, or some of the three main things that you would like to end with?
So I need some time, so it may be more than three. So what I want to say is that there are some technical things I want to discuss. First of all, if you look at what happened during a COVID lockdown, even then there are cities within the non-attainment cities which are unable to meet the national ambient air quality standard. During lockdown, I'm talking. There are daily values, there are seasonal values that's even higher above the national ambient air quality standard, when almost all primary emission sources were omitted. Reason? Secondary pollutants. Nobody is talking about that. Unfortunately, in a tropical country, it's a blessing in a sense, but in a pollution point of view, it's a kind of a bane, in the sense that biogenic emissions or VOCs that are emitting trees, you can't cut down trees. They are a huge source of biogenic VOCs, and they produce a lot of secondary pollutants, which then contribute to PM2.5 and PM10. So even if you remove all the primary emission sources, stop everything on its track, there will be locations where you're still able to not meet your own national ambient air quality standard. Forget about WHO or WHO 5 or 20 micrometer. Okay. So what needs to be done is that not all primary sources are bad, and not all primary sources are responsible for this secondary pollution production. So you need to prioritize which pollution sources you need to target, how much you need to target, how your fund is going to be channelized into that. This is first thing. So please, people need to centralize about the secondary aspect of the pollution as well. This is not the primary. Second is dust. Our background itself is very high, so we have to be realistic. So as an NGO, as a policy-making organization, you need to sensitize people about the realistic expectation from the pollution control board. Dust levels, because of tropical countries, high wind speed, high updraft velocity, the dust level will always be higher here. You cannot compare us with France or US. This thing. Even US, if you go over to Western coast, you will see that there are cities which are not meeting their air quality standards, even after 50 years of US EPA. And US EPA, now let's go back to the US EPA, what they did, we can learn from that. The first thing they're doing is that they immediately involve the IOR, their corresponding IORs, and they embark on a journey of largest funding air quality research program, which is still the largest, even though 90% of the problem is solved. Why? Because they want to keep it that way. The moment you give a slack, the air quality is going to come back with a vengeance. So that is why the air quality research program is largest and still the largest. They have their own air quality people. I think Mr. Dighe was talking about it. Is very important. A lot of scientific component, we are talking to them, but since they do not have that proper background, or they have maybe background 25 years ago, they have done some masters or something. They are now completely out of touch. They have become bureaucrats. They are not able to understand the technicalities of this matter. For them, it's just a number. For them, it's a proposal that needs to be funded or not funded. That decision they have to take. Okay, so the overall picture purview that how this is happening, anything new that we will propose, they're going to shoot it down because it is either not in line with CPCB or not in line with some other regulations. Now, if IORs are not getting funding, then we have to rely on a proposal that has to be on CPCB line, like the source apportionment Tanushree talked about. Source apportionment, to be frank, not needed. Okay, it is already, sources are not known to us. That what are the sources? Any common sense people will know what are the sources. What is needed in digitized emission inventory that needs to be updated yearly basis. For that, IORs can be involved at how to plan the study, how to do this. Look, as a faculty members, we are swamped with our academic work. Okay, we cannot go out on the field and do the measurements. Even our students have their own research project. I mean, I'm talking about the administrative hurdles that we are facing as IORs. So if CPCB have or PCBs have this air pollution trail, we can be an advisory committee. We can give them advice. We can design the proposal for them, but the field work has to be done by them. So this is one way that I am raising it with higher authorities also, but it has not been done. Then I will take another point from Tanushree mentioned that we have to be realistic about the timeline, which is very important. US EPA took 30 years to get down the pollution levels to the levels which they are now currently, or 40 years ago. So you cannot expect MPCB is going to do it in 5 years. Okay, so don't expect that. And MPCB is not no US EPA. So first, but what I am emphasizing is that this is a very good start. And I am having meeting with municipal corporations. Again, the problem is nobody is there. We can understand the technical gravity of the situation. The moment I started technical jargons, they are like, I can see from their faces, they are not going to understand what is being talking. So then if I give them proposal also, they will not understand what is the impact of this proposal. They are focused on, we have to meet some target, otherwise next year ka fund nahi milega hame. Okay? Now you understand what are the consequences of that. There are a lot of unethical practices can be developed. That okay, I have to show that I've met the target. So this is one thing can happen. Then the monitoring. Monitoring in a Mumbai city, if a 7, 8, 10, 12 CIQ is not going to do anything. Even if you do something localized, these pollution levels, cities are extremely heterogeneous. Air quality improvement in certain location doesn't mean that city's air quality has improved or on the other way, deteriorated. So you need low-cost sensors, a lot of it. Like the Roanoke is doing a very good work on there. But low-cost sensors has their own limitations. So develop some infrastructure facilities like we are saying, develop mobile laboratories. They can also serve you as entire city pollution map can be developed. Glasgow has developed it. Even Peru, a very small country which is like size of Mumbai, they have developed a mobile air quality map of a city. You click on the city, you will see that, okay, what is the air quality particular road? Forget about the 12 location in the city. So that needs to be developed. So these mobile air quality laboratories can use to check compliance, can use to calibrate the LCS, can also get the data where LCS may not be placed or there could be other incidents. And also it will be in the purview of the urban, the semi-urban or the rural areas in the picture. We do not know what is the air quality there. I think Professor Chanda has published a paper with some satellite data. Rural India is as polluted as urban India. So these aspects needs to be brought into attention of this thing, and the monitoring needs to be continuous. It's not that you define today some hotspot has been or the some location showing improvement. It could be possible that 1 year later again the pollution will come back to that particular location. So this has to be continuous, and now imagine the amount of data is going to be generated. Pollution Control Board cannot analyze that amount of data. They simply do not have the manpower. Okay, so the IORs have to be involved in there and but involved in a proper structured manner. The structure is now missing, the interaction between IOR, ULBs and PCBs. There are some rough structure, funding flow will go from there to there. But the meeting and the happening in a very haphazard way. What is the outcome is outcome. We are submitting proposal, not getting response or feedback. So this can only be solved with IORs are given a part of share of the funding, or it has to be mandated that out of the funding, this much percentage has to be done in research with IORs. Otherwise, it all will always be on the ball is on the PCB's court. So anything we're going to propose, anything new, anything bold, they will shoot it down, say this is not as per CPCB mandatory. So these are few things that I want to, and also one more thing, if you're possible in your dashboard, please sensitize people that they need to take steps also in their homes and in their daily lives. So you can mention that okay, vehicular is a used source. So what a normal citizen can do to maintain his car properly so that it emits less? One study showed that a non-maintained car emits 15 times more pollution than one properly maintained car. 15 times more. Imagine the magnitude. So you imagine every person in the Mumbai city, which have a lot of cars in the city and is increasing exponentially, they can start take care of their cars and etc. seriously. And these POCs, which are, I don't know, I don't comment on that. We all know how POCs these work as of now. They some could be digitized. I mean, a registration number and which POC gave the certificate, what instrument they have used should be digitized. That if a traffic cop caught a car or black smoke is evident, a citizen can take a picture and send to the some control board that okay, look, this number, so they can track which number, which POC has given certificate to this thing, and that POC can be called for action. That you send that it's all okay, now it is emitting black smoke. So this all things need to be we need to brought up. So sensitize people on how steps they can take. Also make their expectation realistic. We are not going to achieve 5 microgram or 20 microgram meter cube. It is not possible in a tropical country. Okay. First, let us bring down to our own national ambient air quality standard. Even if it is within 20% of that, I will be very happy. And then we should make our expectation accordingly. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chakrabarty. You underscored a lot of very relevant points in terms of very structural gaps which the MPCBs and cities are facing in sort of understanding where the gaps are for air quality management. So I had just one question for you before we go into wrap up. You pointed towards rural air quality also, and when we were analyzing the city action plans, it's very clear that none of them are actually looking at regional air quality coordination. And I mean, in Delhi, we are seeing we have a CAQM body now, and clearly, I mean, there is some understanding now that it cannot be tackled without an airshed sort of a strategy. Is there any thinking in the NKN and for IORs, and maybe specifically in Maharashtra, or at least just generally, in terms of how to kind of develop regional coordination for cities and airsheds to kind of have a more holistic strategy instead of which is just limited to administrative boundaries?
No, I am not aware of any, and this will not happen again until they started developing their own air quality cell. Because if I talk to, let's say, anyone from any local body, Pune Municipal Corporation, somebody, when I'm in meeting, they may pay attention to that. But once I'm out of the meeting, there's nobody to remind him or remind her that this discussion has happened. We need to take action on that. Because to be frank, they are swamped with the administrative loads. I visit CPCB pretty frequently in Delhi. Most of the time, they're busy with NGT orders, court cases, these things. Okay. So these people are not going to take air quality matters seriously. In the sense they do not have the bandwidth to do that, to be frank. So you have to give them enough manpower. They're understaffed. So we have to also give them slack actually, that they are not they are very understaffed. Everybody is under pressure. Every time NGT, Supreme Court, somebody files a case in Supreme Court, a CPCB person has to go in Supreme Court and represent CPCB. So in this kind of this setup, how do you expect that they will take a proactive action in air quality? They'll always be reactive. When there will be pressure from the public and NGOs and other things, or they will be reactive. They'll never be proactive.
Thank you so much, Professor Chakrabarty. Ranak, if I may invite you to just for any last comments and just wrap up the session, maybe invite everybody for a last comment. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Gunjan. And I think there were some, very relevant, very pertinent points shared by both Mr. Dighe and Professor Chakrabarty right here at the end. And frankly, if supposing an IOR and IIT Bombay of all the IORs, which is one of the most prominent IORs in the network, and if an IOR is struggling to engage with the regulator in trying to implement solutions, then one can only imagine what the larger civic community would experience when they try to reach out in understanding solutions or being a part of them. So I think the institutional framework that Dr. Chakrabarti mentioned is quite fundamental. Of course, work for air quality needs to happen at several layers, right from the ground level and, the individual level, the community level. But the institution level is something which, organizations like these can, help fix. And that's quite essential. So I think for our, this particular initiative, was an attempt really both at community level work, citizen and community level, as well as trying to see which IORs are able to implement which aspects of these. So I think the conversation that has happened today, frankly, is a very positive conversation in the right direction, and one will only hope that this dashboard will bring out more and more groups to engage. I would encourage, that the NCAP tracker Twitter handle is very active. And the more people kind of say that, okay, we are experts in, some road technology, cement technology, and we see that XYZ city is having specific actions on that technology and we would like, then probably the NCAP tracker handle can kind of at least redirect some of those interactions and channel them to the right authorities. So frankly, that's really what we feel is the role, because this dashboard and the Twitter and other mediums, the Instagram and all, wherever this information is distributed, are mediums to get the right folks to reach out to the right institutional authorities. So we feel this is a step in the right direction. Ultimately, this is a tool for accountability and for bringing truth to power. There is a lot of power now that has been established through the NCAP program. The policy is in place, the intent is in place, the central government is pushing the right agenda. The experts are on our panel. And as Dr. Chakrabarti mentioned, that you really need scientists to be working. I'll just give an example, that California Air Resources Board, and in fact, a subset of CARB, which is the South Coast Air Quality District, has 800 scientists employed full-time just for monitoring air quality in the South Coast of California. So they take their air quality that seriously, and LA has shown massive improvements from being one of the worst cities, what Delhi is today, to being a most sought after city to live in. But it requires massive manpower, it requires intent, and it requires action on the ground, which can come together. And hopefully a dashboard like this will allow the right experts to, come on board in the same room. We share the frustrations that has been shared, by the experts here, but hopefully more engagement will allow us to, take things in the right direction. So yeah, that's what we can share from our end.
Tanushree had a point on institutions, and then Gunjan, can we wrap up after this?
Thank you so much, Aarti. I won't take a lot of time. I just feel that every time we have a discussion about NCAP or we have a discussion about air pollution, the conversation comes back to institutions. Now, we have to understand that under the NCAP itself, we are supposed to have an air quality management cell within the PCB. We are supposed to have a city level review committee. We are supposed to have a district level management committee. We are supposed to have an air quality monitoring committee. There are so many committees which have specifically been set up to ensure that these city action plans are being implemented in a way that they are meant to be. Unfortunately, these committees, for some reason, are not sort of executing their job the way they are supposed to. And I think that given you guys have created this dashboard for Maharashtra, it would be very, very critical to also categorically perhaps put out the formation of these committees so that maybe there can be a dialogue between people who are looking at the dashboard and using it to communicate with the right stakeholders. Because I mean, it's very evident, and thank you for being so candid, Professor Chakrabarti. He's so involved in the process and he was able to share the frustration with us. But these committees are there to streamline the process. So I think that it'll be really cool if, the committees, the formation could be made public so that, the conversation can happen with the right stakeholders when it comes to implementation of the clean air plans, particularly. Just that.
Fair enough. I think that's next level of work cut out, Gunjan and Ronak, that you don't just talk about monitoring and measures, but you also talk about mapping institutions and solving the issue of governance as such on air quality issues. We are on top of the hour, actually 5 minutes ahead. Thanks everybody for a very, very candid conversation. Big kudos to Ronak and his team, everybody else at Climate Trends to get this going. It's on Twitter, I can see it. Please feel free to share it away, give some social media love, and engage with it as much as possible. Thanks very much for staying all through, and thank you to all the panelists for joining in, sharing all your insights and perspectives, which are absolutely very nice. I see Amit has dropped off, but thanks once again, Professor Chakrabarti. Your insights were very helpful and will help us shape up the next stage of our work. Thanks, Tanushri, and we can end.
Thank you.
Bye, Ronak.